Monday, March 24, 2025, the net finally closed in. After months of covert planning, the Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau launched a high-stakes intelligence-led operation across West Dublin. Heavily armed officers swept through the area, targeting the strongholds of Ireland's most elusive drug traffickers, a ruthless organised crime group known simply as the Family. During the early morning raids, 3 senior members of the gang were arrested. They were the Garda gang unit's prime targets. But this wasn't just an Irish problem. The Family's reach stretched far beyond Dublin's city limits. With deep pockets and a network of loyal collaborators, the gang had embedded itself across Europe. From the sunny shores of Murcia to the crime-plagued underbelly of Malaga, the Family had established a lucrative drug empire that thrived on international cooperation and corruption. As Gardaí launched their raids in Dublin, over 1,000 miles away, Spanish police were moving in on the cartel's European nerve centre, Castellón de la Plana, Valencia. There, gang members were caught red-handed inside a key distribution hub. Within minutes, it was over. More than 1,000 kilos of cocaine was seized, discovered in the gang's main unit, where it was being vacuum-packed and hidden in secret vehicle compartments. A total of 4 properties were raided in Spain, 3 in Castellón, and 1 in Orihuela. Combined with the Dublin operation, the coordinated strike led to 20 arrests across both countries. Among them, Irish, Spanish, and Colombian nationals, including the cartel's boss and his most trusted lieutenants. Spanish authorities uncovered drugs worth €30 million mid-process, packaged and ready for shipment back to Ireland. The spread and scale of the operation stunned many. By the end of the day, officials across 2 nations were calling it one of the most significant blows to organised crime in recent history. The global chase was over. The Family had finally run out of road. But it raises 2 pressing questions. How did a small-time Dublin gang evolve into Ireland's most powerful drug cartel? And what misstep brought their criminal empire crashing down? In the late 1990s, Ballyfermot, a working-class suburb in West Dublin, was feeling the grip of a growing drug crisis. Gangs and drug lords were emerging across the city, and among them was a crew of brothers led by a sharp, calculating figure, Brian Grendon. Alongside his brother Philip and a close group of trusted associates, Grendon began systematically dominating the local heroin trade. Brian Grendon preferred to operate from the shadows. Cautious, sharp, and surveillance savvy, he rarely took risks. But in 2001, at just 25, he slipped, caught with €2 million worth of heroin and sentenced to 6 years. Most would have folded. Grendon regrouped. On release, he wasted no time rebuilding and soon became Ireland's top heroin trafficker. The Family's early playbook was cold, calculated, and effective. They preyed on vulnerable addicts, feeding them free heroin and cocaine in exchange for loyalty and labour. These addicts became expendable foot soldiers, taking the heat during busts, while the gang's leaders stayed untouched and got richer. The strategy worked. By keeping their hands clean and their names off the street, the core leadership remained insulated. For years, law enforcement struggled to get charges to stick. The structure they built in the 2000s would shield them for decades. By 2010, the Family had cemented their dominance in West Dublin's underworld. They thrived during the drug boom of the 2000s and were now riding Ireland's growing appetite for cocaine. Unlike the louder, flashier crews, the Grendons kept a low profile. No headline feuds, no public shootouts. They didn't avoid violence, they just used it wisely, in the shadows, where it wouldn't bring heat. As the 2010s rolled on, the Family evolved into a sophisticated import operation. 2 major shifts worked in their favour: Ireland's surging demand for cocaine and the fall of rivals. The Kinahans, once dominant, had become distracted by global ambitions and hammered by international crackdowns. That left space, and the Family moved fast to fill it. What sets the Family apart from other major drug trafficking gangs, especially in contrast to the Kinahans, is that its leaders have remained in Ireland. They've stayed close to their roots and are still well-known figures within their local communities. In 2015, a major raid offered a rare window into the Family's true scale. When Gardaí stormed the Bluebell industrial estate, they uncovered over €3 million worth of drugs and firearms stashed in the garage and car of Jason Rowe, a father of 4 and one of the family's trusted associates. Rowe took the fall, but investigators knew who was really behind it. The drugs and weapons were tied to the family's wider network, revealing not just the size of their stockpiles, but the extent to which they were arming themselves. In 2016, Rowe was sentenced to 5 years, but the raid confirmed one thing: the family was moving serious weight. In February 2016, the Regency Hotel shooting sent shockwaves through Ireland. The brutal attack ignited the deadly Kinahan-Hutch feud, triggering a wave of gangland murders that dominated headlines. But while bullets flew between rival factions, the family stayed out of the spotlight and used the chaos to their advantage. As their competitors tore each other apart, the family quietly tightened their grip on the streets. Heroin was still their biggest earner, but by the end of the decade, they'd made major inroads into the cocaine trade, once controlled by the Kinahans. In early 2021, intelligence suggested the family was wholesaling up to 50 kilos of cocaine a month, fueling a drug empire worth nearly €20 million a year. Authorities were stunned by the speed of their growth over just 5 years. What powered that rise? Connections. Brian Grendon and his crew had spent years quietly forging ties across mainland Europe, cutting out middlemen and sourcing drugs closer to the origin. That direct pipeline turned them from major players into a cartel. With profits soaring, money laundering became both essential and risky for the family. Selling €20 million in drugs annually generated vast sums that needed laundering. They innovated by establishing a logistics wing not only for trafficking drugs, but also for moving and investing their illicit earnings. The family funneled millions into legitimate-looking businesses, often using car dealerships and garages as fronts. Investigators revealed the gang had been laundering money through Dublin garages for years. However, their ties to local car dealerships attracted significant attention. In 2017, a major cab-led operation raided several dealerships, seizing over €1 million in assets, including luxury cars and watches. In 2019, another major cab raid saw armed Gardaí target a gym in a wealthy South Dublin suburb, where the gang had invested heavily. But even after those hits, the family's money-washing schemes continued to evolve. In 2020, they shifted their focus to a legitimate high-end car dealership in Dublin, investing €1.5 million. Although they tried to move away from using car dealerships to launder money, the activities at this prominent dealership showed that it was still their favoured way of washing cash. That same year, however, a major breakthrough occurred when law enforcement uncovered an operation linked to the family and seized an astonishing €4 million of drug money. Darren Hoey, the gang's financial mastermind, was arrested, and his house and a cottage, later dubbed the Gangland Bank, was raided. Investigators discovered a hidden compartment in Hoey's Audi, designed to transport and conceal large sums of cash. That €4 million seizure was the biggest seizure in the state thus far, and demonstrated the magnitude of the family's illicit activities. But it wasn't just cash they found on that occasion. Also, a secret ledger had been uncovered, which could directly be linked to the family. The ledger revealed that the gang had been involved in an astounding €17 million worth of drug transactions in just 3 months through Hoey's operations. The revelations provided authorities with unprecedented insight into the extent of the family's operations and the immense profits they were generating. The figures were astonishing, indicating a drug trade volume that rivaled the notorious Kinahan cartel. Hoey was later sentenced to 7 years in prison for his involvement, dealing a significant blow to the gang's finances at the time. Despite setbacks and ongoing investigations, the family showed no signs of slowing. By 2021, it had surpassed the Kinahan cartel to be Ireland's largest drug syndicate, both in scale and influence. It has connections to Turkish heroin traffickers, South American cocaine cartels, and Moroccan cannabis dealing networks. Having overtaken the Kinahans domestically, the family controlled distribution to numerous smaller gangs across Ireland, including alliances with or sales to North Dublin's Mr. Big and other regional crime figures. With the Kinahans fading from the domestic scene, the family established its own direct pipeline to South America and continental Europe, anchored by a strong presence in Spain, along a key entry point for narcotics into Europe. Spanish authorities uncovered that the family had established a stronghold in at least 3 regions: Valencia, Murcia, and Malaga, with their main base of operations in a warehouse in Castellón de la Plana, Valencia. This hub served as the central distribution point for drug shipments bound for Ireland. From here, Drugs, often sourced directly from Latin American cartels, were vacuum-packed and hidden in secret compartments within vehicles. The smuggling route stretched from Spain through France and into Ireland. The operation was manned by a mix of Irish expats and local criminals. Law enforcement described the family's smuggling system as highly coordinated yet deceptively simple. Encrypted phones were used to organise drivers, routes, and drop-offs. The actual transport method, classic and effective: stash the drugs in separately modified vehicles and drive. But these weren't ordinary hiding spots. Spanish police discovered custom-built compartments in cars and trucks, some accessible only via electronic or hydraulic mechanisms. These secret holds were nearly impossible for routine customs checks to uncover. To stay one step ahead, the gang also used cloned license plates, copying the registration numbers of legitimate trucks to blend in and avoid detection during the long haul from Spain to Ireland. The takedown of the family was a sophisticated scheme. In 2024, cybercrime experts in France quietly pulled off a major breakthrough, cracking into an encrypted phone network used by criminals worldwide, known as Ghost. Marketed as an untraceable ultra-secure communication tool, Ghost was run out of Sydney and had become the go-to platform for organised crime groups across the globe, from Australia to Europe. Criminals believed it was impenetrable. They were wrong. For 8 months, law enforcement had hacked the system, monitoring messages in real time. It was a covert surveillance goldmine, echoing the seismic EncroChat takedown of 2020. And once again, the family's digital fingerprints were all over it. The global sting operation, codenamed Operation Kraken, united Europol, the FBI, the Australian Federal Police, and national forces in a coordinated strike against encrypted criminal networks. Ireland, investigators discovered, had the highest concentration of Ghost users in the world, around 100 active devices, many directly tied to the family's leadership and smuggling crew. When the system was compromised, the family was still using it, unknowingly feeding live intel to law enforcement. Gardaí has since pored over the intercepted messages, leading to the recent wave of arrests. By mid-September 2024, investigators had gathered enough intel to strike hard at the family. On September 16, a massive operation was launched. 300 officers executed 32 coordinated raids on properties mostly tied to the gang. The results were staggering. Over 16 million euros worth of cocaine, cannabis, and heroin was seized, much of it vacuum-packed or expertly concealed, along with piles of cash, cryptocurrency, and 126 mobile phones. Crucially, 42 of those phones were running Ghost encryption software, exposing the gang's secret communications in black and white. The pressure didn't let up. In early March 2025, a major shipment tied to the family was intercepted. 152 kilos of cocaine hidden deep within a refrigerated unit of a truck, accessible only via an electric hydraulic lift. The truck was stopped on the M9 in Kilkenny at 10 a.m, but the drugs were so expertly concealed they weren't discovered until hours later, after a detailed X-ray search at Dublin Port. The driver, a 61-year-old businessman, was arrested and remains in custody, suspected of facilitating drug trafficking for a criminal enterprise. Simultaneously, Gardaí searched a house and 2 businesses in the southeast, seizing phones, documents, and digital evidence. Authorities suspect the cocaine came from South America on a mothership and was offloaded via high-speed boats along a remote stretch of coastline. Then, on the morning of Monday, March 24, 2025, armed units descended on 6 locations across Dublin and the east. Their targets were precise: the gang's senior leadership. Brian Grendon was arrested at his West Dublin home, reportedly caught completely off guard. His brother Philip was also taken into custody. By day's end, 5 top-tier gang members were in custody: the boss, his 2 brothers, and 2 key lieutenants. A 6th suspect, a logistics man in his 50s known as the Storeman, who oversaw the gang's stash houses, was tracked down and arrested in a follow-up raid that same evening, effectively dismantling the family's Irish command structure. At the exact same moment as the crackdown in Ireland, Spanish authorities moved in. The Gardaí Civil launched coordinated raids on members of the family's Spanish wing, hitting locations in Murcia, Malaga, and the gang's main stronghold, the Castellón warehouse, which had been under surveillance for months. 6 men were arrested, all key players in the gang's international supply chain. The Spanish raids turned up a trove of evidence and assets, including 35,000 euros in cash, 12 luxury vehicles, and 4 transport trucks, many outfitted with sophisticated, hidden compartments. The trucks, all bearing Irish plates, had been used to ferry drugs from Spain through France and into Ireland. Altogether, authorities seized more than 300 kilos of cocaine, worth an estimated €25 million, and 220 kilos of cannabis. Now, 12 suspects are in custody across Ireland and Spain, facing a raft of serious charges. In Ireland, after nearly a week of intensive questioning, prosecutors are pushing for charges including drug trafficking, conspiracy to import narcotics, money laundering, and membership in a criminal organisation. There's even talk of adding conspiracy to commit murder, depending on how the evidence unfolds. This case is being watched closely across Europe. It's set to become Ireland's first major trial built largely on encrypted phone evidence. If the courts allow data from platforms like Ghost or Encrypted, it could become a game changer in the fight against organised crime. But there's a looming legal battle ahead. Defence teams are expected to challenge the admissibility of the Ghost messages, likely arguing privacy breaches or illegal surveillance tactics. In the wake of the raids, the family's once feared empire lies in ruins. Millions in drug money gone, hundreds of kilos of product off the streets, and the gang's leadership behind bars. For a crew that saw themselves as untouchable for decades, it's a cinematic downfall, and one that may finally signal the end of their reign. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.